Since I can, I'm going to remove this to speak this afternoon, everyone, or be difficult to be understood. So thank you all. Thank you for the setup. Appreciate it. And we will call this July 9th board meeting to order, special board meeting. Mr. Myrick, would you open us with prayer, please?
Father, we come to you today. We're thankful for you watching over us. We just pray that you continue to watch over our students, parents, this county. Just ask that we put this virus in your hands and that we can understand your will. Ask that you forgive us where we fail you. All the opportunities we have to be witnesses for you, strengthen us, Lord. We just ask that you continue to be with us, go with us as we go through this meeting. Help us make the right decisions, everything that will be positive and glorify to your kingdom. In Christ's name we ask. Amen.
Amen. And please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and we're moving along. We have any amendments to the agenda?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Tyler, okay.
Amendments to the agenda. Amend number 1, dissemination of revised board policy 7.8, virtual school option.
All right, and that's the only amendment?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Do I hear a motion to approve the agenda as amended?
Motion to approve. Second.
You have a motion from Ms. Colley and a second from Ms. Lynch. Any discussion, any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries. All right.
Yes, ma'am. Items of business. Agenda item 1, dissemination of revised board policy 7.8, virtual school option. The superintendent recommends adoption of a motion to approve the dissemination of revised board policy 7.8 to local schools and organizations for input as amended and stipulated in the agenda exhibit.
Do I hear a motion?
So moved.
A motion from Ms. Colley. A second from Mr. Johnson. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries.
Agenda item 2, leave of absence of personnel. Superintendent recommends adoption of a motion to approve the leave of absence of personnel as provided to board members under separate cover.
A motion from Ms. Lynch. Second from Mr. Johnson. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries.
Agenda item 3, retirement and resignations of personnel. Superintendent recommends adoption of a motion to approve the retirement and resignations of personnel as provided to board members under separate cover.
Motion from Mr. Johnson. Second from Ms. Lynch. Any questions or discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries.
Agenda item 4, transfer, intent to transfer of personnel. The superintendent recommends adoption of a motion to approve the transfer, intent to transfer of personnel as provided to board members under separate cover.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Colley. Second from Ms. Lynch. All those in favor? Oh, any questions or discussion? Sorry. If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
No.
And the motion carries.
Agenda item 5, employment of personnel. Superintendent recommends adoption of a motion to approve the employment of personnel as provided to board members under separate cover.
So moved.
Motion from Ms. Colley. Second from Mr. Johnson. Any questions, discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries.
Agenda item 6, extra work for extended periods. Superintendent recommends adoption of a motion to approve the extra work of personnel as provided to board members under separate cover.
Motion from Ms. Lynch,
Second.
second from Ms. Colley.
Mr.
Johnson, sorry. Any questions or discussion?
Any discussion?
Yes, any discussion? Do you have a question?
This, summer school, on here, I didn't think we had school. We had the summer school?
Yes, sir.
We do. We have school, 9 of our campuses, and we're doing social distancing for our students. They only come 1 day a week, and they're working virtually at home to make up credits that were missed during last year's school.
Well, I mean, everybody's been bringing up the question, what we gonna do about school? We already having school,
Yes,
right?
they're having summer school, but they only have to come to campus 1 day a week.
It's coming. Yeah, that's all. I didn't know what we were doing.
Okay, that's fine. Any other questions or discussion? Thank you, Mr. Murray. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And the motion carries.
That's all I have, Ms. Dawson.
No reports, no.
Yes, we'll, and then I know the board, y'all might have some things you want to talk about, but Chaz, anything that you want to offer up to the board on anything on your end? Okay, all right, thank you for what you're doing on communication, publicity, on everything. You and Danielle and Brooke are really knocking it out of the park, doing a super job, and appreciate that. It's the revamp of communication was warranted. Y'all are doing a great job, so thank you. Tiffany?
I would just like to say I appreciate the special board meetings that you're going to. We probably need to ask for one in the office.
John? Good. Oh, Renee? Okay. Hope?
The growth of the virtual elementary school, I printed that off, you can see what time, but John told me by the time we got in here, we had over 500 students enrolled, so we've got a lot of work to do there, it's exciting, but a lot of things to get done.
Is that a total number, Hope, for the school, or do you,
That's what we had to wrote down.
That's elementary.
That's just elementary.
that's just elementary?
Right.
That was going to, yeah.
712 is increasing too, from my understanding. And we've only had registration for 4 days, 3 days. So I can see this going toward 1,000. But it's a good problem to have, and we'll figure it out as we get there. But there really wasn't an option for parents. Parents needed this option. And Board, I appreciate you allowing us to move forward with this, because they either take our option or they go to the state. And that's not what we want our parents to do. So they go to the state virtual. So.
Well, I agree. I mean, if we say that paramount to Baldwin County Board of Education is meeting the needs of all of our children and addressing them as the very best that we can address them, and even in this situation, then, I think offering that as an option is a wonderful thing. I'm so glad y'all have that design.
Will we have a way to be flexible with school administrators once they can make a change for,
They can.
and through August, and then again at the end of the grading?
The 9-week period on elementary and semester on middle high school, yes.
I might be wrong, but I see a lot of that. I see a lot of people
Change up and down.
They think they want to do virtual school, but they don't really want to do virtual school. So,
Kind of like golf.
yeah, you buy the club and then you don't
So you just wait till that.
That's right. Just wait.
Hey, while we're on this, if, we're doing the social distancing and all this, in department stores, you're gonna eat so many people in at a time. Why don't we have our dress code K through 6? Why don't we do away with it? Because you go in, they had kids try clothes on, you don't know who's tried it on before them. This doesn't make sense to me, that we don't
they're going to buy clothes.
kind of back off. If nothing else, this year, anyway, I mean, what do y'all think?
I think if you leave it, don't plan to go back.
No.
Well,
You know, I think
I wouldn't
if-
care if we did,
Right,
but
I understand, but,
we don't do it to 7-12 either, so, and you know, like, I believe Mr. Cardinal said when he stood up and jockeyed for the 7 through 12, no uniforms, he said he couldn't find any correlation between uniforms and academic scores. So, I can see that just as well K through 6.
I think as a board, though, we left elementary because that's what our elementary administrators ask us to do.
Right.
The elementary administrators ask for uniforms to stay with the K-6 campuses, and we appreciated their input, and, I mean, they're the boots on the ground, and
Well, we have a lot of parents now asking, having problems because of this COVID virus.
in finding,
Yeah, and
Yeah.
even getting into stores,
well,
because they're not letting so many in at a time.
yeah.
And
The only thing,
I mean,
yeah,
yeah.
just saying,
Yeah,
I mean,
the only-
it's hard to
I
tell.
guess the only
Just
thought-
Do it or not. I know we
Yeah.
have to disseminate the policy if we do change something, don't we?
right, yeah, you would, we would have to, yeah.
It's in dissemination right now, the handbook is.
Yes.
So, like, we disseminated it last board meeting, and so this is the dissemination period where we would do input and consult, and then it doesn't go back before y'all until the likely term.
The only
I
caution,
just thought I'd bring it up and whatever.
Sure. Yeah,
Tyler
wow.
thinks.
Right. I appreciate that, Mr. Myrick. I know that I've received emails from parents and, asking about the elementary. Nobody's asking about middle high school. They're asking about the elementary. Of course, like you say, middle high school's very relaxed. Basically, I send that on to Hope and Renee and them to look at and to process and give answers, because I know that COVID has created some issues for families. I know that some of this is coming back. Not everybody has come back, and not everybody has a job back again. My concern would be that if you as a board start unwinding some things,
Right.
then it is difficult kind of to get the genie back in the bottle. And I know parents made a run with us because they wanted to use COVID as, please go back to the block because you're changing classes 3 more times. And so could we stay on the block? I think the plea was disingenuous, but, if the board has an appetite and wants me to bring a recommendation, then I'll be glad to do that. Of course, that's,
Out of all the things, I'd rather be the block or whatever. It wouldn't matter if it'd been COVID or whatever, they wanted that.
Yeah, they
before
did.
COVID ever came
they
along.
do, they do.
But the uniform stuff, I just think that as a board, these parents need some help. Because I guess all of us have been shopping.
No.
I mean, if I get a haircut now, I go out and sit in the chair on the outside and wait. I mean, it's crazy.
It's a whole new world. I think the only thing I would mention, if I recall correctly, and Hope you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think one of the things that the elementary school principals addressed in their desire to keep it was that it was much easier for them to address the needs of children who were going without jackets, shoes, clothes in whatever fashion. And they-
established clothes closets.
Right.
That, kids grow fast, and so the uniforms are still good, and they could go, parents could go and trade in, get some and everything, so, and with little ones, they have accidents, and have to change during the day, so they had things like that there. So there were, several of those
Yeah.
things they cited as why they felt like they wanted to keep it.
I suspect there's going to be a bit more flexibility for the administrators if parents have these types of problems as far as.
I would hope.
Yeah,
Mr.
and I
Johnson.
think
so.
I would hope.
ask the principals at the elementary school,
I
I think
will.
they would have a problem, because they're experiencing the same thing they're experiencing.
Oh, yeah.
You can't get in these stores.
All in this
Well,
world together.
while y'all, as y'all think about this over the course of time, I will put something out to our principals, our elementary principals for sure, and ask them to make sure they they are exercising some compassion and flexibility with students, because we don't know what parents have been through. We really don't. We don't know what all of them are dealing with, and every family's dealing with something different. So, but thank you for bringing that up, Mr. Meyer.
Thursday agenda, we have elementary on Thursday, we have that to June 16th.
Yes, that's right. We'll be with the elementary, right, okay.
So
yeah.
before I just want to go back, because go back to where we were before we got off on uniforms. When these parents make these decisions to change, which, how flexible, because at a certain point, you're going to have classroom teachers that, you know,
Yeah, John and I were talking about that.
That's-
You know, it's like when we have 14 right now, so, you know.
so these teachers know they may go from virtual back into a classroom if we have an influx, and they're willing to be that flexible to say,
That is something we have discussed, and
Yeah.
what we advertise will make a big difference there.
okay. Because I agree, I see a lot of parents starting off with virtual school and after about 3 weeks saying, whoa, baby.
Right. Well, and another
Let me
thing,
back
too,
up.
With the elementary's a little bit different than the secondary, is they're gonna try to pace as closely as possible.
Right.
With the brick and mortar.
Yes.
I mean, we're using the same pacing guide, the same materials.
Right.
So that if that does happen, that transition will be where at secondary, that's a lot different.
It's very hard for secondary.
Yes.
Because scheduling on campuses, if they're on an online course.
Right.
That
It's
face-to-face course may
very
not be
different.
offered. So
Yeah.
we have to do a lot of creative thinking about kids going back, and we have those conversations with parents, and sometimes when they go back, they still have to stay on the online class to be able to finish it to get that credit. So we will be having a lot of conversation with, one-on-one with parents that, want to move back, and, you know, let them know what that will look like when
Right.
they look back, when they do move back.
Well, with elementary, if you've got a classroom that's already at the max or one kid shy of max, and then you add 10 kids in that grade level, you're kind of, because you're going to have to pull to make a class, so you're kind of turning everything upside down.
Like the city said, we can talk. They have to hire one on the itinerary.
Yes, okay.
I was
Well, I was
about
wondering
that,
how,
and then
yeah.
just place them.
And I was wondering how principals would
different
handle
environment.
that. I mean, classes, I mean, rooms, I mean, it's going to be, when those kids decide to come back, it's going to be, Katie, bar the door.
Yeah, we're having to look at, we may have 79 kindergartners right now. That's throughout the district, so we have to assess the impact of
Which schools?
and also make sure that we have coverage on the virtual side. So
Right.
that's another one of those aspects that we're involved in conversations with Sarah and Scotty to make sure that we're covering everything.
Okay, thank you.
When this happens, or when this happens, it won't be willy-nilly where we just throw some kids back in and.
Right, but I mean,
and-
it's, I don't think we ever do anything willy-nilly,
Right.
but I just see it,
And if we can process it and come up with something that makes it easier, we will, but it's a difficult situation,
is.
a balancing act that we're dealing with, and
it is.
so, but that's good questions. Marty?
Just a couple of things. Athletic Association met with the sports committee Tuesday and determined that there will be sports this fall. So that means we had to ramp up. We met yesterday, kind of go over what we're going to put out to all the coaches tomorrow. I'm going to do a Zoom with them tomorrow.
Band members too, band also.
I'm going to do band early next week.
Okay.
I got to work out, but theirs is a little bit different.
It is, but same type parameters, but anyway, yeah.
But I'm gonna do them early next week. Basically, it's kind of opening things up for them to get ready for the season. Their season starts in 3 weeks. So they gotta get ready to play. Don't know how long it'll be. There'll be some more stuff come out from the Athletic Association about some other type restrictions that they're gonna recommend. And I'm gonna say it, they're gonna recommend, and the local LEA, you gotta decide if they're gonna take it or not, which means you guys. So we'll all fall in your lap as far as what happens and how we do it.
Is that gonna be clean into the stands?
It's gonna be the local LEA.
Yeah, that's
They're
what's
gonna
going
give
on.
recommendations, it'll already says, how we're gonna do it. And which causes a problem. You may have one system that decides they're gonna do this, or they're not even gonna play. This one is, so then that's gonna force, this group of forfeit games.
Marty, I'm sure that this has already come up in conversations at the senior staff level, but one of the biggest questions that I'm getting is our virtual students prior to COVID have been able to play their sport at their base school. Now that we have what appears to be a large influx of students choosing virtual because of COVID, are those students going to still be allowed
Yes.
to play?
Yes.
Wherever
Okay.
the base school would normally be, they'll get to participate.
Okay.
In athletics and band, there's a few things we let them do. We don't let them do, they can't come in and be a part of, the Civitan Club or something like that. But
I guess if you're too afraid to sit in a classroom,
And then you want to go on.
and I've said this, I have no shame in saying it in a public meeting, but if you're too afraid to sit in a classroom, why are you too afraid, or not afraid
Right.
to go work out and play football
Amen.
or volleyball or any other sport?
Praise and holler.
I mean, I
And to
just,
be honest, one of the things that we do allow is the junior ROTC, that they can do that. Well, that is a classroom. You have to come to school and go to those classes.
Right.
So.
Well,
that's-
it's just like at the superintendent conference when Coach Savarese was there, polling all the superintendents with one of those things there. He would ask a question and say A, B, C, D. And one was, if your school goes totally distance learning, just shuts down like we did in the spring, totally distance learning, would you be in favor of your students participating in athletics? Over 90% said no.
right.
Well, Savarese says, well, guess what? You're going to be forced to play. So it doesn't make any sense, but that's what they're saying. You're going to be forced to play, or you forfeit games. You can't make playoffs. It's a little bit wild and crazy up there. So,
That's always good to, ask them what they think when they tell you.
Everyone.
yeah, exactly.
That's exactly.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean,
Once we get more of it, I'll bring it back to you guys. The other thing, and actually, it just came out today about 2 o'clock. I don't know how many of y'all know about our Project Search program, where our special needs kids, that work at.
there was at Thomas Hospital.
Work,
Mobile Infirmary's canceled that for next year, because they just don't take the chance. So
Right.
hopefully we'll get back to you guys.
Yeah, that's,
We were kind of expecting it, but today.
Yeah.
yeah.
Sad.
Thank you, Marty.
That's
Homer?
disappointing.
Uh-oh.
Mr. Sampson,
Uh-oh. Is there a sermon?
you're good?
Wow.
Okay. See, who am I, who am I missing? Scotty, Sarah? All good. I will say that in our meetings, of course, Sarah and Scotty do an outstanding job of any time we need them, they're right there 24/7. Sarah is in all of our staff meetings dealing with this virtual school stuff, dealing with the COVID, dealing with what we put out through press releases and to our parents and to our employees, and looking over all this stuff, mountains of policies and laws. So they do an outstanding job. And, it's always good to see our AAA colleagues here, Land of Milk and Honey, right, Jesse? And our law enforcement, appreciate what you do. Mr. Stewart, good to see you here. Terry, Guy, Louise, it's always good to see you. I don't see you as much anymore, but always good to see you. I know the ship is running well up there. Kurt, I think, did I miss somebody? Did I miss anybody?
Does Guy have any questions?
Media, any questions?
No questions, okay.
Okay. Well, I appreciate y'all. Yes, ma'am.
And we appreciate you.
I was just going to give you a motion to adjourn.
That's what I
Okay.
was going to say. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
In a second, I'm sure. I'll second it.
We need a
All in
second.
favor? Aye.